The church was filled with soft light, casting a warm glow over the faces of our friends and family gathered to witness our union. As I stood at the altar, my heart swelled with anticipation, waiting for the doors to swing open and reveal the love of my life. Finally, the music swelled, and there she was gliding down the aisle on her father's arm. Rachel looked radiant, her eyes sparkling with joy and her smile lighting up the room. I couldn't tear my gaze away from her, mesmerized by her beauty and the promise of a future together. As she reached my side, her hand slipped into mine, and I felt a surge of emotion wash over me. This was it, the moment I had been dreaming of since the day we met. With trembling voices, we exchanged vows, promising to love and cherish each other for all eternity. After the ceremony, we stole a moment alone in the church courtyard, basking in the afterglow of our newfound marital bliss. "I can't believe we're finally married," Rachel whispered, her eyes shining with happiness. "I know," I replied, pulling her into my arms. "I've been waiting for this moment my whole life." We shared a tender kiss, sealing our vows with a promise of forever. Little did we know the challenges that lay ahead would test our love in ways we never imagined possible. But in that moment, all we could see was the bright future stretching out before us, filled with hope and possibility. The honeymoon phase of our marriage was short-lived. As the days turned into weeks, and the weeks into months, I began to notice subtle changes in Rachel. At first, it was just a fleeting sadness in her eyes or a quiet withdrawal during our conversations. But soon, those moments of melancholy turned into a pervasive darkness that seemed to swallow her whole. "I'm worried about you, Rachel," I confessed one evening as we sat together in the dimly lit living room. "You seem distant lately, like you're somewhere else." Rachel forced a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine, really," she insisted, though her voice trembled with uncertainty. But I knew better than to believe her facade. Something was weighing heavily on her mind, something she couldn't or wouldn't share with me. And as much as I longed to help her, I felt powerless in the face of her silent suffering. As the months passed, Rachel's depression deepened, casting a long shadow over our once bright marriage. Simple tasks became monumental challenges, and moments of joy were few and far between. I tried everything to lift her spirits, planning romantic date nights, showering her with affection, even suggesting therapy, but nothing seemed to penetrate the thick fog of despair that surrounded her. "I don't know what to do anymore," I admitted one evening, as we sat together in silence, the weight of our unspoken troubles hanging heavy in the air. Rachel's eyes brimmed with tears, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the pain she had been hiding from me. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just don't know how to feel happy anymore." My heart broke for her in that moment, knowing that no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't ease the burden of her suffering. And as we sat together in the darkness, I feared that our once bright future was slipping further and further out of reach. The weight of Rachel's depression became an ever-present burden, pressing down on our marriage with an unrelenting force. Each day felt like a battle, with me struggling to keep our home running smoothly while she retreated further into her own darkness. "I'm doing the best I can," I told myself as I scrubbed the dishes in the sink for what felt like the 100th time that week. But no matter how hard I worked, the mountain of chores never seemed to shrink, and the exhaustion weighed heavily on my shoulders. Rachel, meanwhile, seemed to retreat deeper into herself with each passing day. She spent hours locked away in our bedroom, the sound of her muffled sobs echoing through the walls. Despite my best efforts to reach her, she remained elusive, shutting me out with a wall of silence that seemed impenetrable. One evening, as I collapsed onto the couch after another long day at work, Rachel's voice cut through the silence like a knife. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her eyes brimming with tears. My heart clenched at the sight of her pain, knowing that I was powerless to ease her suffering. "We'll get through this together," I promised, reaching out to take her hand in mine. But even as the words left my lips, I knew that the road ahead would be fraught with challenges neither of us were prepared to face. As the weeks turned into months, the strain on our marriage became impossible to ignore. The laughter that once filled our home was replaced by tense silence, broken only by the occasional sound of Rachel's tearful confessions. "I don't know how much longer I can go on like this," she admitted one evening, her voice thick with despair. "I feel like I'm drowning, and I don't know how to save myself." My heart broke at the sound of her anguish, knowing that I was failing her as a husband. But try as I might, I couldn't shake the feeling that the weight of her depression was becoming too heavy for me to bear alone. And as I watched her retreat further into herself, I feared that our marriage was slipping further and further out of reach. The breaking point came unexpectedly, like a crack splitting through the surface of a frozen lake. It was a chilly evening, and Rachel sat across from me, her gaze fixed on the floor as she twirled a lock of hair between her fingers. I need to tell you something, she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. My heart skipped a beat, sensing the gravity of her words. What is it, Rachel? I asked, my stomach churning with apprehension. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. My therapist thinks I need some time away from you, she confessed, her words landing like a punch to the gut. I felt the color drain from my face as her words sank in. What do you mean, time away? I demanded, my voice rising with panic. Rachel avoided my gaze, her eyes fixed on a spot on the wall. She thinks that being with you might be contributing to my depression, she admitted, her voice trembling with uncertainty. The room seemed to spin as her words washed over me, leaving me reeling with confusion and disbelief. Had I really become the source of her suffering? Was I driving her away without even realizing it? As the days passed, the weight of Rachel's revelation settled over me like a heavy blanket, suffocating any hope I had left for our marriage. I tried to make sense of her therapist's words, searching for clues to what I had done wrong. But the answers remained elusive, leaving me with more questions than ever before. I don't understand how this happened, I confessed one evening, as Rachel sat across from me, her eyes filled with sorrow. She reached out to take my hand, her touch sending a jolt of electricity through me. I don't either, she admitted, her voice thick with emotion. But I can't go on like this anymore, and neither can you. Her words hung in the air between us, a silent acknowledgement of the rift that had formed between us. And as I watched her retreat into herself once again, I knew that our marriage had reached a point of no return. With Rachel gone, the silence in our home was deafening. At first, it felt like a gaping void, a painful reminder of everything we had lost. But as the days turned into weeks, I began to embrace the solitude, relishing the freedom it brought. I can't believe how quiet it is, I remarked one evening as I sat alone in the living room, the only sound the gentle hum of the air conditioning. My friend, Jacob, who had come over to check in on me, nodded in agreement. It's like a weight has been lifted off your shoulders, he observed, his eyes scanning the room. I couldn't help but smile at his words, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe again, like the heavy burden of caretaking had been lifted from my shoulders. But even as I reveled in my newfound freedom, doubts lingered in the back of my mind. What if I had made a mistake in letting Rachel go? What if she needed me now more than ever? I can't shake the feeling that I should have fought harder for our marriage, I confessed to Jacob, my voice heavy with regret. He placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder, his gaze filled with empathy. You did everything you could, my friend, he reassured me. Sometimes letting go is the bravest thing you can do. His words struck a chord deep within me, resonating with a truth I had been reluctant to accept. Perhaps in releasing Rachel from our marriage, I had also released myself from the shackles of her depression. And as I looked to the future with newfound hope, I knew that I had made the right decision for both of us. As the days stretched into weeks and then months, I found myself standing at a crossroads, uncertain of which path to take. The decision not to reconcile with Rachel weighed heavily on my mind, even as the voices of doubt grew louder with each passing day. I don't know if I made the right choice, I confessed to my sister Camilla as we sat together in her cozy living room, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. She reached out to squeeze my hand, her eyes filled with understanding. It's natural to have doubts, especially after everything you've been through, she reassured me. But sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that lead to the greatest growth. Her words resonated with me, stirring a sense of determination within me. I knew that moving forward without Rachel would not be easy, but I also knew that I deserved a life filled with joy and fulfillment. As I navigated the uncertainties of life after divorce, I found solace in the support of friends and loved ones who stood by my side through it all. Their unwavering belief in me gave me the strength to face the challenges that lay ahead. And I knew that no matter what happened, I would never be alone. I'm proud of you, Jacob remarked one evening, as we shared a beer on my back porch, the stars twinkling overhead. I smiled gratefully, feeling a sense of gratitude wash over me. Thanks, Jacob, I replied, clinking my bottle against his. I couldn't have done it without you. As I looked to the future with renewed optimism, I knew that the road ahead would not be easy. But armed with the lessons I had learned from my past, I was ready to embrace whatever challenges lay in store, confident that I could overcome them with courage and resilience. And as I took the first steps on this new journey, I knew that whatever the future held, I would face it with an open heart and a steadfast determination to live my life on my own terms. Thank you for listening to the story to the end, and if you like it, Please support us with a like as well as subscribe to our channel. Write in the comments what